Salute to all my subscribers. Shout out to everybody else just passing through. YouTube, what's good? What we talking about? Sex and relationships, the importance of it, and the confusion that a lot of people have, where a misconception of what role sex plays in the relationships, and is sex a necessary occurrence in relationships even when peripheral aspects within that relationship are damaged. So I think everybody would agree, and I'm a proponent of it as well, that sex is an important part of any relationship. I mean, any healthy relationship does need to have a healthy sex life. But I say that, and on the other end of that spectrum, there are many important aspects of a relationship that require a lot of things to be in healthy form in order for that relationship to be considered a healthy relationship. Here's the problem though. Generically speaking, when we hear people talk about relationships and they talk about sex being an important part of a relationship, here's where I think people get a little bit confused. So here's my take. While sex is an important part of every relationship, any partner in a romantically charged relationship cannot and should not expect their partner, if this is how their partner is set up, to engage in sexual activities with them if that partner is unhappy about other aspects within the relationship. So here's what I mean. You're in a relationship with somebody, and when I say relationship, I'm speaking broad term. So that could mean new relationship, long-term relationship. That could mean a marriage, any committed relationship. I don't care if that relationship is same-sex. I don't care if it's a heterosexual relationship. Whatever that relationship is, if it's romantic in nature, and you or your partner is unhappy with certain aspects within that relationship that have been communicated, and things have been brought up as far as changes that need to be made in the relationship to make that person feel like their participation in that relationship is warranted on an ongoing basis. When those things are ignored, certain things in the relationship will start to suffer. Now, the majority of us are sexual and physical beings. Understand that it's human nature. We all have needs. It is what it is. But where I think a lot of issues come into play is when certain people like myself and other people who I interact with within my circle and circles around mine, certain people like myself gauge our connection with a person based on so many different factors, the least of which pertains to sexual activity. Now, I'm not going to speak for anyone else, but understand that a lot of my views and ideas and the communication that I put across on my social platforms, i.e. my YouTube channel, my podcast, my Facebook group, whatever, is my views, but also is meant to incorporate the thoughts and opinions of so many people who I interact with daily. So here's the thing, and I'll speak for me at this juncture. If I'm in a relationship with you, whoever you are, my connection with you is based on many things. Firstly, my connection with you always has to be based on our level of communication and the nature of that communication, because people often say that communication is an important aspect of a relationship. It's not just an important aspect of a relationship. It's a foundational piece. It's a structural piece. If you don't have that, nothing else can be built on the foundation of that relationship. Here's the problem. When people throw out terms like trust, communication, loyalty, all of these things, a lot of times we speak generically, and we come from a cookie cutter kind of place when we talk about certain things in a relationship setting. There's different types and forms of communication. So, in the interest of this video, when I say communication, I mean communication that is, one, progressive, Because I mean, you could be talking to someone and they could be talking back to you, but if it's just the same shit in a circle day in and day out, you're really not getting anywhere with that communication. So it has to be communication that is forward moving and progressive, right? I'm getting something out of it, you're getting something out of it, and at the end of that dialogue, we have a better understanding about that situation and a little better understanding about each other. Here's the thing, most people don't communicate in that way, because for the most part, communication doesn't happen in real time, right? We need time to process, and a lot of times when we're in a situation, that situation tends to become a little tense, it tends to get a little heated, and so people aren't immediately processing what's being said or heard, right? Because a lot of times, especially in relationships, when we go back and forth with one another, a lot of times, and I'll be honest, I'm guilty of it too, we listen to respond and we don't listen enough to hear, right? And again, I'm not lecturing or trying to educate anyone. When I speak in terms of all of us, because these are things that on a human nature level I'm guilty of as well. Pardon me. So here's the thing. Communication, one, needs to be progressive, right? Needs to be forward moving. Two, communication, in order for there to be communication, that means information being sent, information being processed, and information being received back. And if I'm talking to you, but you're not responding, or you're not hearing or understanding, because there's a difference between hearing what I'm saying, listening to what I'm saying, and understanding what I'm saying from the basis of communicating. You can hear the words coming out of my mouth, but if you're not getting the point of what I'm trying to get across to you, then we really aren't getting anywhere. Why do I keep talking about communication if this video is about sex and relationships? Because I said that communication is a foundational and structural piece of any relationship. So every sub facet in a relationship has to stem from communication. Now, so let's get into sexual activity in a relationship and the importance of it. Sexual activity, interaction, participation, whatever, in a relationship is directly connected to communication or the lack thereof. Most people, and people like me, who speak of or experience low sexual activity at different points in their relationship is usually due to a breakdown somewhere in communication, right? I'm voicing something to you that I need within this relationship setting. You don't hear me, or you hear me but you don't understand, and you don't communicate back that you understand, or you just ignore it. These are all of the different typical reasons why people's needs go unmet in relationships. Not blaming anyone, it just is what it is, right? We talk facts. We don't talk blame or putting the onus on anyone. It just, fact is just fact. So from that, a certain amount of time goes by, and I'm watching the progression of the relationship, and I'm seeing over time that different needs aren't being met, different things aren't being set as far as agreements and compromises. And over time, not that my physical or sexual attraction to you starts to diminish, but I'm charged off of connection to a person intellectually. I'm charged on a connection level with a person when our vibe is strong, we're problem solving together, we're doing things that further our relationship as far as mental and emotional bond goes. And when all these things are in line with each other, this is the best environment for an individual like me to be most fulfilled, and then subsequent to that, I'm able to perform at my best as far as sexually speaking. When I say perform, I don't mean able to engage in sexual activity. I mean the level at which I'm enthusiastic about being involved with the person I'm with in that way. So if there's something suffering in my relationship, and I've gotten feedback from countless number of people, within my circle and outside of my circle. And these are the things that I bring to you all for processing, because what one person deals with in a relationship affects everyone, because these are everyday real life issues. We might not always speak of it, but even if it's there beneath the surface, and even if it's unspoken, it still has a presence. And every presence in a relationship has an effect on that relationship. So people need to stop automatically making the connection between two people being together, and so it's a necessary thing and it's an automatic thing that those two people are going to be engaging in sexual activity. Because there are, what I'm finding out, quite a number of people who, if they're not happy with a situation or a series of situations, which a relationship is just a series of situations that you go through with another person, there are people who, if other things are not in sync with them in that relationship, they're not going to be in a mind state or in a mood to want to sexually perform for that person. Does that mean that the relationship is doomed to fail or damaged beyond repair because there's no sexual activity? No, because here's where I think people get sex being important in a relationship twisted and confused. There are certain things in a relationship that, without the presence and the practice and the ongoing effort put into those things, that relationship cannot succeed. Right? Things like communication, things like trust, the ability to be able to compromise and problem solve with each other. These are core relationship characteristics. You have other things like sex, for example, that are symptoms of core things that are not happening in that relationship setting the way they should be. So why differentiate the two is because, look, if we don't have things like communication or trust, the relationship is just faulty, right? It's faulty from the jump. The foundation is not strong enough. And what are we really doing? But we can have all those things that for the most part are in pretty good standing. But from time to time, there are lapses in certain things at different points in time. And so when those lapses start to happen, what you then start to get is you start to get a lack of a healthy lust that person has for you within that relationship. But sex is, while it's an important aspect of a relationship, it's not a core characteristic of a relationship, because it's dependent. A core characteristic of a relationship are the things that relationship is dependent on for it to succeed. Sex is I don't want to make it sound like, like a reward system, but that's really what it is. Sex is a outward expression between two people that they use to magnify a connection and an overall good environment that already is in place. So in other words, like, we have that love, we have that bond, everything is going good. So sexual activity is something that we engage in to outwardly express what's already good beneath the surface or at the base of that relationship. You can't expect a person who at the base of the relationship are not happy with one thing or another or several things to want to outwardly express to you their feelings and their thoughts and their love for you or about you in that way. Because before you can reach the point of outwardly expressing yourself to your partner, you have to first feel that. And a lot of people mistake different stages within a relationship and how different things can become disconnected over time, because a relationship is everyday work and it requires effort consistently in order for a person to continue to feel like that relationship is being maintained. I'm not talking about somebody getting everything they want when they want it. I'm not talking about every little complaint someone has, you jump you know what I'm saying, to accommodate them. It's not what I mean. What I mean is, people, look, we always have wants and we always have needs. Everyone has things that they will tolerate in a relationship, and then everyone has things that they will not, under any circumstance, tolerate in a relationship. So if you have a list of 10 things that you look for in a relationship, I would venture to say that probably 6 to 7 of those things are things that you would like to have, um, but if you're realistic, you understand that you might not get all of those 5 or 6 things, or 7 things. But if you could at least have a few of them, then overall you're good. And if you could have 2 or 3 of those 5, 6, or 7 things at different times, but overall throughout the course of that relationship you're getting all 5, 6, or 7, most people are happy, and that's all we can really ask for. Now, those remaining 2, 3 to 4 things are what I call non-negotiable things that people, A, will not settle for not having, and 2, will not tolerate if those things are taken away at any point in the relationship or compromised. And another video, another topic, another episode, another day. But just keeping with the premise of how important sex is in a relationship, and this is for men as well as women, because it's not just women who feel like when the connection starts to diminish, they don't want to perform sexually for the man that they're with. It's also men who deal with that issue as well. And a big problem that I'm seeing that is happening, and a lot of people need to stop. When your partner is no longer eager to engage in sexual activity with you in the construct of your relationship, it does not mean that they're cheating on you. It does not mean that they're no longer, physically or sexually attracted to you. There's something else there that's disconnected. It's a symptom of something. So if you know that if you have a cold, you're not going to go, out and do something to treat that cold that's not conducive to that cold being adequately treated. Like there's steps to different things, but I feel like, and I know ego does play a part, and it comes into play with all of us. Sometimes I think the biggest part of the communication dimension that we lack in relationships is when something is going on in the relationship that we aren't happy about, or that we think we need in that relationship to be fulfilled. We jump to the worst conclusions, and we get into little attitudes and our feelings about shit without really going to that person and finding out what really is at the root of this. Because everything has a root. Everything has a cause. It's cause and effect. Nothing just pops up out of the blue one day for nothing. And most people who are withholding themselves from you in the relationship sexually, those people tend to be the most communicative people. And I would venture to say that signs were displayed and communications were attempted to be made that there are things that are really starting to cause the relationship to start to become damaged. And when you don't listen to those things over time, now you have a situation where you're with someone, and for the past 3, 4, 5 weeks, 2 months, there hasn't been much, if any, sexual activity in that relationship. It doesn't necessarily mean that person has checked out. It doesn't necessarily mean that person is cheating on you. It could more than likely mean that person is resorting to what last means of communication they have. Because if I'm with someone, right, and fellas, this is really for us. If you're with a female who feels like the relationship has gotten damaged so much to the point that she feels that she no longer wants to engage in sexual activity with you on a regular basis, understand it's a form of communication too. And while it does need to be coupled and accompanied with verbal communication about what the issue is and how to fix it, that's also just a form of communication. And sometimes it's a last-ditch effort. If I know that the person I'm with holds this one thing in the relationship to a high regard, and they're not hearing me, and communication is broken down. Sometimes, and you might not even always be cognizant of it, sometimes you will resort to that thing that you know is important to that person, and you'll take it away as a natural response to you being deprived, starved, in that relationship from the things that you need. And I know it's hard when ego takes over, and I know it's hard when you start to think different things when your partner is no longer being sexually active with you. But I think the best way to deal with that type of situation, especially with something that is as expressive and connection based and important and common in all relationships like sex, it's a conversation that we need to have. Because look, I'm definitely an individual who, if I'm not vibing with you at any point in time in our relationship and things are starting to take a turn for the worse, that's usually the first thing that's gonna go. My attentiveness to you physically, and I'm talking not just sex, but anything, whether it be cuddling, whether it be me being romantic in nature, whether it be, me wanting to be close to you, and anything leading up to sexual activity, that's the first thing to go with a person like me. Because if I don't have that connection with you, I'm not going to be able to perform in that way. And I'm not really going to be motivated to. So look, I'm not going to make this too long. It's been long enough. It's about 20 minutes. I just stopped through to let y'all know that, look, sex is important in relationships, but it's not the end all be all. And if you have complaints in your relationship about sex not being a prevalent thing, if you know your partner and you know that most other things in that relationship from their end are that there's a commitment to those things, then more than likely that person's not engaging in extracurricular activities outside of the relationship. Like, who you're with, and the caliber of the person you're with for the most part. Some people just need to have their needs met before they can perform physically. It just is what it is. I don't ever really try to put my theories into everybody's relationships and into my own relationships, out there as being the end all be all of what's best for relationships. I just speak to people, I interact with them, and feedback that I get from them, for things that I throw their way, and feedback that I give to them for things that they throw my way, is how I build on my knowledge of relationships and how best to navigate through them. Because none of us really know what we're doing. We're all stabbing around in the dark. And the best way to get a hold on this thing is to have more in-depth communication with each other. And y'all know, man, like I come through and I unload whatever interactions I have with people on a daily basis. They bring it to me, I bring it to y'all for further processing so that we can all benefit from it. I say it all the time, and I'll say it again, and I'll always say it. It's about us taking care of each other and taking care of ourselves. Because if we want what's best for ourselves, then we'll want what's best for the people in our circles and the people around us. If we stay together, we'll never have to come together. I don't pretend to know everything. I just know what I know. I see you on the next one. Peace and love.